Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for staying to the end. I'd like to thank everybody else who has spoken so far. They've given very freely of their time. And just to kind of go back a bit here, I'm a Policy and Public Affairs Advisor with the NDA. I won't be keeping you too long here, but after listening to all the supports that public bodies have in place, we'd like to again thank everybody for speaking here. I think it's important just as well to give you kind of an overview of the supports that the National Disability Authority provides to public bodies to help them achieve the 3%. Just to kind of remind everybody of why we're here. Part 5 of the Disability Act, there's obligations of public service bodies with regards to the employment of people with disabilities, insofar as practicable, to take all reasonable measures to promote and support the employment of people with disability. Ensure, unless there are good reasons for not doing so, that at least 3% of their employees are people with disabilities. And obviously then, as you know, June 30th, you all send in reports on these measures that you're using, and these reports go to your monitoring committees, who then compile the reports, send them to the ministers of their parent department, and then the National Disability Authority also gets this report. And since 2006 onwards, the National Disability Authority has produced annual reports on what bodies are doing on their compliance with Part 5. Now, part of this is about bodies are encouraged to make the 3% target, but really since 2006 bodies have been introducing more and more measures and supports. So really at this point it's not just about making the 3% target, it's about creating a positive work culture using practical, effective and low-cost measures. And as you've seen from our panel of speakers here today, it is more than possible. The NDA, one of our supports that we have helped to produce to support this, creating a positive work culture, has been our publication on effective leadership, and we will be producing a condensed version of this in flyer form later on in the year. It's very, very important about talking about a positive work culture, particularly in the current environment that we have. We've got a recruitment moratorium, there are voluntary redundancies, there are voluntary retirement schemes, and people need to be looking forward about planning for the upturn and the fact that people with disabilities should be working in a mainstream environment, that this should be the norm, so to speak. In terms of our suite of supports, we have produced just recently new guidance for monitoring committees to give them guidance on how to fill out the narrative for their statutory reports. This narrative should, even though we know that monitoring committees deal with a huge amount of information, it still is important to make sure that the information that the NDA gets back does contain a summary of the positive measures that the bodies have in place and contain all the reasons why the bodies may not have made the 3% target, because it enables us to adjudicate if a public body is really compliant with Part 5. We basically get a picture of the measures they have in place and then reasons why they didn't make the 3%. This is all very, very important, because if we have no information and a body has failed to reach the 3% 2 years in a row, under Section 49 of the Act, and I won't go into it in too much detail, but basically the NDA can make a statutory request for information to a particular body, and we also have to let the Minister of that department know that we're going to be making that statutory request for information. Just in terms of, the issues, in terms of the supports that we provide for bodies, and also the issues that come up and again for bodies in terms of creating a positive work environment and also making the 3%. Data collection, you may have heard some people say already, it's still a key issue for many public bodies. And what the NDA has done is that we have worked with some bodies to advise them on, developing articles for their HR magazine, for their staff intranet, etc. We did work with Dublin City Council as well about, promoting positive reasons why staff should fill out Part 5 forms. Now, obviously, filling out these forms is voluntary, but again, it's promoting the positive reasons why somebody would do this. It's about promoting the business case for promoting and employing people with disabilities, because if somebody with a disability is working in a job, they are an advertisement in themselves for why an employer should employ somebody with a disability. Also, when we've been giving guidance to employers about, writing articles about why people should fill in the statutory forms, about promoting and creating a positive work culture, it's also been about promoting the capacity of people with disabilities. This is what the focus is on. Not about what somebody can't do, what they are doing. And Fergus has already referred to that. And again, if you've got work in a positive work environment for anybody, that may encourage disclosure. We're not saying that you should do this too, that it's all about disclosure. It's about creating a positive work environment for everybody. We already have guidance documents that some of you will be familiar with on the web just about filling out the statutory forms and other issues like that, and they're on our website there. Just in terms of another issue that comes up, sometimes people say to us, particularly in the monitoring committees, HR managers say, well, you know, I know that there are people with disabilities, but they haven't disclosed a disability because they don't feel that they have a disability, because they're being accommodated in the workplace. And our response is, that's fantastic, but the issue is that the definition of disability under the Disability Act of 2005 is the social model of disability. If somebody feels that they are being accommodated in the workplace and therefore they don't have a disability, that's fantastic, but the fact of the matter is, once they leave the workplace, there are barriers towards them to participating in mainstream society. So that's just to touch on that point, because sometimes people say to us when they are doing data collection that people say, well, I don't have a disability. So this is just the definition of disability under the Act, and then how to apply that in terms of if somebody's thinking about, do I have a disability, do I not have a disability? Just in terms of one of the key issues as well, and this came up in our 2010 Part 5 report, is the issue of retention, and it's particularly relevant given our current economic climate, about retaining employees who acquire a disability. Retention makes good business sense. Retaining all employees makes good business sense. We have produced a guide which we launched last year, and it is available on our website. Some of the key points which this guide covers are the fact that providing supports to employees who've acquired a disability, early intervention is important. Keeping in touch when an employee is absent from work. This is practical guidance about how to do that. You know, is it when it's appropriate, when it's not appropriate? Again, that is all in the guide and it's up on our website. Obviously, the guide also touches on employment legislation, the importance of training for line managers and staff, the fact that where you can get information about reasonable accommodations, how to implement reasonable accommodations, and as you can see, our panel of speakers are experts in that in terms of that they apply them in our workplace. But also the really important fact is that many reasonable accommodations actually cost nothing. Many of them, or they're very, very inexpensive. For example, flexible working hours. There may be a hidden cost there, but it's very, very low cost, and it makes sense. Often people who, you know, and the idea of flexible working hours is not just for people who've acquired a disability, people with disabilities. It's applicable to all of us. Many of these issues here are relevant to people with and without disabilities. Also, one of the other things that this guide does touch upon is making employers aware of what supports are out there. There are FÁS grants which are still at www.fás.ie, and that's very, very important because employers are also a very important part of this. It's not just about employees, it's about employers also, hence the name of the guide, it's for employers. The guide also contains a list of useful resources at the back. And actually we have flyers out on one of the tables there. I'm sure some of you have already seen our publications table. Just as well to add another note, the two-page handout for Project Search UK is also on that table. And it's, if you go out here to the left, that table there with our publications table contains those handouts in case people haven't got a copy. In terms of additional relevant supports that the NDA provides advice on, you've already heard about our e-learning course on disability equality. We also provide advice on positive to disability recruitments for bodies that recruited in 2010 but didn't make the 3%. For example, institutes of technology, health sector and transport sectors also. And this isn't just about bodies that didn't make the 3%, it's also if somebody asks us for advice as well. One of the pieces of advice that we also give many public bodies is linking in with organisations that provide work experience. For example, the IAC Job Shadow Initiative, a HEADS WAM programme and any other resources that are out there. And the whole objective of this conference today has been to encourage peer-to-peer learning, and this is something that in practice we do as well. It's important for public bodies to learn from each other, the good practice that is there. You don't need to be listening to four of me talking. It's important that you listen to your peers, as peers talking about the supports that they have in place. Just in terms of, you know, bodies that didn't make the 3% target in 2010, there were two groups who we kind of looked at in terms of providing particular tailor-made supports. 8 of them were 8 of the largest public bodies. If they had made the 3%, the statutory target would have been achieved across the public sector as a whole. And 10 public bodies who recruited during this time but failed to make the 3% target. Now, again, the issue about this is it's like what supports, we are aware that there's a recruitment moratorium, we are aware that there are many different factors why a body doesn't make the 3%, but what supports can we provide a public body? So in terms of the 8 largest public bodies, the supports that we're putting in place is that we have met and we are meeting with each of these bodies to identify their specific needs and provide tailor-made supports, because not every public body will have the same needs and supports. And we also, as we said, have a programme of supports, which I've already referenced to in my presentation. The NDA will monitor the impact of these supports and public bodies towards meeting the 3% target, but also creating a positive work culture as they roll out these supports. In terms of the 10 bodies who recruited, the NDA made statutory requests for information to these bodies to kind of find out the reasons why they recruited but still didn't make the 3%. We are now in the process of reviewing these bodies' responses to determine if they are compliant under Part 5 and also what tailor-made supports they may require. Again, this is about supports being a particular issue. With some of those bodies already, we are looking at providing them with positive to disability recruitment practices. That is about, for example, linking in with disability organisations and advertising any vacancies that may arise, given the fact that there is a recruitment moratorium on. Also, looking at, does their interview panel, is it trained in disability awareness? Are they advertising the fact that interview candidates can ask for, a reasonable accommodation for interview? Do they have that on their application form? Very simple, practical, low-cost measures. And again, the NDA will monitor supports and public bodies' progress towards meeting, the 3%, but more importantly, again, creating a positive work culture. Our guidance is on the NDA website. I've just listed it there. And if anybody would like to ask me any further questions, my name is there with my phone number and my email address. And please do feel free to contact. I realise that I've probably gone through this at lightning speed. The sign interpreter is going, please stop talking so quickly. But anyway, I hope that I have given you kind of a flavour of the guidance and supports that we have there. I also realise that it's 4:10, so, and that people have really given up their time to be here, and also that we have a panel of speakers who I would like to say thank you very, very much for giving up your time to speak here today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.